friend from Dell, running all these storage initiatives, data center initiatives for Dell, working with Mario Saas and Michael. Alan, welcome.
Hey, Tarkan, great to be here.
Come on in, please. So there are two executives I know. They are everywhere. Wherever I travel, Timbuktu, Nepal, they go, yes, TK was here, Alan was here, and now you just showed up. There is not a place that I can arrive. TK from Wipro or Alan has not been there. Everywhere I go to, they've been there before I get there. I cannot impress you with any restaurant, any customer example, any city I've been to, because you've been there before.
You know, sharing a stage with Tarkan is always a bit of a bit of an interesting experience. So I'll just leave it at that, Tarkan. But yeah, sure.
So, Alan, a lot of people know you, obviously. You're leading the very important initiatives for Dell globally. You're an investor, obviously. You're in Atkinson, great friend to us, and also personal friend. Just open up your neighbors at the same time. One area it's interesting is your background. Most people might not know your background. Can you talk about your background, personal background a little bit?
I'll do it as quickly as I can, Tarkan. Before I do that, I just want to sort of give a shout out to what Elizabeth was saying. You know, I think this Entrepreneurs Unite effort is really very relevant to just about everybody in this room. And I can tell you, Michael Dell's sort of the ultimate entrepreneur, if you will. And this is something he takes very seriously. And you know, I just want to sort of reiterate what Elizabeth said, and hopefully everyone in the room will go sign that petition. So there you go, right? So back to your question. My background, so I've been in the storage business for, you know, much like yourself, probably 25 years, right? Kind of a sad reflection of my career, I suppose. But in any case, you know, things have changed a lot, right? So I actually started out at Bell Labs, if anyone's old enough to remember Bell Labs. Once upon a time, that was a pretty cool place to be. And now they don't exist, which says a lot, I think, about what happens in technology, right? I mean, things just, they change, right? After that, I went to Goldman Sachs, back when Goldman Sachs fit in a single building in New York. And I actually started the first data storage group on Wall Street. And if anybody knows New York, I think our fiber is probably still in the A-train subway between Brooklyn and New York, where we did SRDF version 1 and a lot of stuff that, you know, you wouldn't think banks do. And then I left and, you know, I became an entrepreneur. So somebody in here might remember a company called Storage Networks. I ran engineering there. We IPO'd that, pretty successful. And then I started a company called Wisdom Software, which if anyone uses Data Protection Advisor for EMC bought my company. And so I was at EMC for a while, quite a while.
I'm not going to hold that against you.
Yeah, you know, we all, obviously I discovered the error of my ways, right? So now I'm at Dell, and I run storage globally. And it's been an exciting ride, right? And I think one of the things, and I know we're going to talk about this, that is a huge sea change that we're seeing out there is this movement towards software-defined. And you know, the other side of software-defined is compute-centric, right? It means the same thing, it's just said differently. And one of the reasons I was really excited to come to Dell was because we have a significant share of servers. And so unlike, you know, a lot of the traditional storage vendors, we're actually not threatened by that model. In fact, we're actually embracing it, right? It's actually an opportunity for us economically to go out there, get more share, and actually help lead the way here. And that's a little bit different than most of the traditional storage vendors, and frankly, I'm excited about it.
Super. So just moving on that theme, obviously most people don't know. When people think storage, that many brands come up, obviously Dell is one of them, but people don't realize the market position of Dell, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, we should probably do a better job of letting people know about this. I mean, sort of towards the midpoint of last year, we took the worldwide #1 share in capacity, right? So we are the #1 capacity vendor out there. One of the interesting side effects of that, if anyone cares, is that you know, every vendor wants to sell to us. So I think we probably have one of the best purviews of vendor roadmaps on flash, on solid state, on memory devices, on drives out there. And so that's pretty cool. And then if you kind of look at what's been happening just in the traditional storage market, we've been gaining share there too. So combined with our server share, it's a pretty exciting ride.
It's amazing. So very quick anecdote, by the way, to talk about the success and Michael Dell and Alan's vision around storage. True story, and you're not going to find this on Wikipedia or on your you know, favorite browser. My last company, Wise, when Dell acquired us, we were talking about the desktop virtualization and user side of things. Nexenta was an open source project 2 years ago. and the topic would come up all the time. And actually, Alan and Michael Dell came up, and we were having a conversation because it was impacting the VDI business. We were like, this is an amazing technology. Let's go meet the investors and this company. So Alan was actually first person who ever mentioned to me Nexenta. I learned Nexenta from you. I became orange because of you. My wife hates you because of that, because I'm at home all the time, like even my pajamas are like this. So
I'll apologize next time I see Cassidy.
So actually, you were the first person truly advocating software-defined containers, orchestration, some of the work going on around OpenStack. So tying to that, Alan, can you talk about some of the trends you're seeing? What kind of challenges they're creating for the customers? You're coming from a banking background. You know every bank executive in the industry. It's not an exaggeration. So trends, challenges, and what are the solutions you're looking at as you move forward in this continuum?
Yeah, well, clearly that could take up the rest of this presentation, so let me see if I can get through just a couple of the really macro trends, right?
Great.
So if you look at computing in general, and I'll get to storage specifically, but computing in general, I think this whole movement towards containers and DevOps, and obviously, the cloud. Now, the cloud's the most overused term, possibly in history. But if you think about what that means in the DevOps model it implies, it's really quite an interesting paradigm shift. As you get to storage specifically, I think we're in a world, and this is probably something, as the head of storage, you wouldn't expect me to say it, Del, but we're in a world where the traditional external array market is shrinking. And I think that's going to happen for quite a while here, right? And so what does that mean, and where do you put your priorities? Well, obviously you want to keep investing there because it's still a very big market, right? And as I said, we're gaining share there. But the other side is, where do you want to place your bets? One of them's on flash and solid state, and we had, SanDisk up here talking about that earlier. We're doing a lot of things to move the price envelope there. I mean, we just announced TLC flash, which is a new technology. I won't get into an acronym city here with you. But, we're down to about $1.60, $1.50 a gig in a full array, right? That's remarkably different than where we were, and it's something Michael likes to refer to as the incredible shrinking data center, right? If you think about it, we're getting to a world where you're going to have literally 4 or 5 petabytes in 4U, and I'm not talking 5 years from now, I'm talking a couple years from now. That changes a lot of things, right? And the third thing, and this is the one probably most near and dear to your heart, is software-defined. And it's not just storage, it's also networking, it's also compute, but it also is a paradigm shift where we're beginning to see the lines between traditional infrastructure and development really get blurry, right? So if you think about some of the flavors of software-defined, there's quite a few of them, but you start thinking about things like Hadoop, well, that's actually driven by the development community, right? If you think about some of the things you're doing around object, well, that's actually not coming from the infrastructure teams, right? That's a developer-driven movement.
Absolutely. Tying to that, I know you're talking to a lot of customers. You and I having a conversation. You talked about this, obviously not necessarily new, but we're seeing this a lot with the containers.
Yep.
And everything going on with the OCI, Linux Foundation. We're doing a lot of work together with the foundation around open source, software-defined. Obviously, storage is the key theme here. What are you seeing on that front? What are you hearing from customers?
I don't think I walk into an enterprise customer. Small, medium business maybe thinks about things a little differently, but when I walk into those banks you referred to, I walk into a telco, I walk into a service provider, and usually you can almost set your watch, and within 10 minutes, containers come up. Most specifically, usually Docker, but then you hear about Mesos, you hear about Kubernetes, you hear about kind of everything that's going on there, and that's, again, a radical paradigm shift when you start to think about what that implies. And if you sort of flash back to what I said a couple minutes ago about the incredible shrinking data center, and you look at what's happening with the expiration of Moore's Law and more cores coming on the processors and more density going into the storage, what you're getting is containers enable a lot more parallelism, a lot more things in a much smaller footprint. And that's a pretty big sea change, Tarkan.
Absolutely. One last point, a customer example is always good. We're working with this big opportunity actually in the UK. It's SanDisk, InfiniFlash, Dell platform. One thing about truly so, and I'm just not, you guys know there's no script here. We just talk about this as goes on, and Alan is a mentor to me on this. Even though you are all Dell platform, but you are super customer oriented, like Michael and Marius as the executive team and the entire team across Dell. As we were talking to the customer, I gave an example from a Canadian customer earlier. This customer uses actually some old Sun systems and now Oracle systems, and they want to use our software on multiple systems. And you were the one, basically through your sales team, telling the customer, this is the beauty of software defined. Even though Dell sells compute, network, and everything on Dell gear, that openness resonates. And I'm sure that we're going to continue that with this open data center, OpenSDx movement as we move forward into the future around containers and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely, Tark. And it's one of the reasons I'm so enthusiastic about our partnership, right? I mean, we've been, I think, a huge friend of the open source community. We've been a huge supporter of this whole movement to software defined. And you know, to your point earlier about customers, if you think about the way that you want to sell, you know, it's great to go get an order, and I love an order as much as anybody, but I think the way you really win is to get that trusted advisor status. And how do you do that? Well, you go in and you have thoughtful conversations with customers, and most importantly, you listen. And you know, sometimes the software defined is a really good angle to go in there and solve a problem. And you know what usually happens is once you get that initial footprint, you get that initial opportunity, you land and expand, right? So it's because you earn the business, right?
Yeah, totally true. So on that note, one final question. Best sushi place in San Francisco?
Okay, so we disagree on this one. So, you know, look, I love Roger and Sushi Puzzle. You got to go to the bar in the back.
Sushi Puzzle, guys? Anybody knows Puzzle on Lombard?
Awesome.
These guys are not cool enough. We need to cool them up a little bit.
Hey.
This is the best sushi Puzzle. Just Yelp it right now. So thank you for being here. The reason I asked this because I know Alan is going to be probably in Jakarta or Manila or somewhere else. I'm following you to have the best place and have fun, but at the same time deliver outcomes which you do every day. Thank you for being here. I know you're traveling out. You're going to catch a flight, so we want to make sure that you don't miss the flight. I don't want your wife to hate me, but thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
The feeling's mutual. Thank you very much, Tarkin. Thank you.
Big hand. Thank you.